What would you do if you had to spend $30 million in 30 days with a ton of crazy rules, and if you fail, you lose everything? Get ready for a wild ride because this is the story of Monty, a down-on-his-luck minor league pitcher who gets the chance of a lifetime, but with a catch. So we meet Monty, a relief pitcher for the Hackinack Bulls, a minor league team that's, well, not exactly famous for winning. In fact, the Bulls are so low on the totem pole that their home field, no joke. Every time a train rolls by, the game has to stop until it passes. Talk about home field disadvantage, right? Monty's best friend and catcher, Spike, is always by his side. One day, Monty pulls Spike aside and points out a guy in the stands snapping photos of him. The guy's name is Donaldo, and apparently he's been at the last 3 games, always with that camera aimed right at Monty. Monty's got a theory. Maybe, just maybe, Donaldo's a scout from the big leagues, and Monty's about to get his shot at the majors. However, Spike thinks Monty's getting his hopes up a little too much. Against all odds, so the whole team heads out to a bar to celebrate. While they're there, Monty and Spike meet a couple of women who say they enjoyed the game, and the guys start flirting, hoping to take them home later. Meanwhile, outside the bar, Donaldo is on the phone with his boss, giving him an update on Monty's whereabouts. Turns out, Donaldo's been tailing Monty for days now, keeping a close eye on everything he does. Back inside, things take a turn when the women's boyfriends show up. They're not happy at all to find their girlfriends hanging out with Monty and Spike. An argument breaks out, and, well, you can probably guess things are about to get messy. Sensing that things are about to get out of hand, most of the crowd starts to clear out. One woman even calls the cops ahead of time, just in case. Sure enough, the boyfriends and the ball players end up brawling, throwing punches all over the place. Some folks actually stick around to watch the chaos, and a few even jump into the fight themselves. People are getting tossed onto tables, and chairs are flying everywhere. Fast forward to the next morning, Monty and Spike wake up in jail, still locked up after the fight. Their coach, Charlie, shows up to break the bad news. The team's management isn't going to cover their bail. Now, the guys are seriously worried about what's going to happen next. They're worried about missing the last game of the season, but Charlie, their coach, quickly explains that the higher-ups simply don't care about them anymore. The team's plan is to bring in younger players and completely revamp the roster. Charlie points out that Monty actually got to play for 15 years, which is way more than the average player, so he should really be grateful. A few hours later, the duo is taken to the courtroom. They're hit with a bunch of charges, including assault and destruction of property. The guys swear they're innocent and even start arguing with the judge who, understandably, gets pretty annoyed and sets their bail at a hefty $3,000 each. Since they don't have that kind of cash, they're about to be sent right back to their cell. But just as they're about to be escorted away, Donaldo interrupts. He explains that he represents an anonymous party who's willing to pay for their bail and all their fines as long as Monty and Spike plead guilty. Still convinced that Donaldo is a big league scout, Monty happily accepts the deal. Afterward, Donaldo takes the guys to New York City. Spike completely freaks out when they walk into a huge corporate building, convinced that Donaldo is actually an undercover cop trying to trick them with this whole scout story. Donaldo, however, calmly points out that he never once claimed to be a scout. He then explains that he was actually hired by a law firm. The group enters a super fancy office, and Monty is taken to meet the lawyers in private. They reveal that they represent Monty's great-uncle Robert, who had a massive argument with the family back in the 1930s. He vanished after that fight, and no one ever heard from him again. As it turns out, Robert became one of the richest men in the country, and since he passed away last month, Monty is now his sole living heir. But of course, there's a catch. The will comes with some pretty wild conditions. The lawyers play a video message that Rupert left behind for his heir. Monty is stunned when he sees that his uncle is actually white, but Rupert saw this coming and explains it all. His father had 2 wives, one white and one black. Rupert doesn't hold back. He says he's disappointed in Monty for being such a failure, and then shares a story about how his own dad used to punish him as a kid. That's why Rupert wants to punish Monty in the same way, by making him absolutely hate spending money. Here's the deal. If Monty wants to inherit his uncle's massive fortune, he has to complete a challenge. He's got 30 days to spend $30 million, but there are a bunch of strict rules. When the 30 days are up, Monty can't own any assets at all, except for the clothes on his back. He's not allowed to just destroy stuff he buys to get rid of the money either. He can hire anyone he wants, but he has to actually get value for their work. Only 5% of the money can go to charity, and only 5% can be gambled away. He can't just give the money away, including buying gifts for people. And the biggest rule? He can't tell anyone about the challenge. If he does, he's instantly disqualified. If Monty thinks he can't pull it off, he can just take $1 million right now and walk away. The lawyers already have the $1 million ready in a suitcase and remind Monty that he's never really been good with money. They actually suggest he shouldn't take the challenge. Curious, Monty asks what happens to his uncle's fortune if he turns it down, and the lawyers explain that the law firm will take control of it. Monty hesitates for a moment, but in the end, he decides to go for it and try to win the whole fortune. The rules are clear. He has to come back in 30 days, right at midnight, with nothing to his name except the clothes he's wearing. To make sure he plays by the rules, an employee named Angela will be tracking every penny he spends, making sure he's not cheating or hiding anything. As they leave, Monty only tells Spike that he's inherited $30 million, and he hires Donaldo as his personal photographer. They head straight to the bank so Monty can see the money for himself, and he immediately withdraws $3 million in cash. The bank manager tries to offer him some accounts that would earn interest, but Monty insists on an account with 0 interest. This really annoys Angela, who has no idea what's actually going on. Then, Monty asks the security guard how much he makes and offers him a way bigger salary to become his personal bodyguard. In fact, Monty ends up hiring the entire security team to follow him around since he'll be carrying so much cash. Spike is frustrated, thinking Monty is just blowing through his money, but Monty promises he's got a plan. Next, Monty calls up Coach Charlie and tells him he's going to rent the whole team, promising new uniforms, a better bus, and higher salaries for everyone. Charlie doesn't buy Monty's story for a second and just hangs up on him. Not missing a beat, Monty flags down a random cab and hires the driver to be his personal chauffeur for the entire month. Angela points out that for what he's paying, he could just hire a whole fleet of limos instead. Monty shrugs and tells the driver to go ahead and do exactly that. By now, a crowd is starting to gather around Monty and his crew, so he invites everyone out to lunch. They all head to a super fancy restaurant, order the most expensive wine on the menu, and even get the musicians to switch from classical to something more upbeat. During the meal, Monty keeps trying to charm Angela, but she lets him know she's already engaged. Her fiancé is a lawyer who's always busy with charity work and social causes, so he barely has time for her. When Monty offers to pay just to meet him, Angela tells him, "You can't buy everything, Monty." Word about this eccentric millionaire throwing money around spreads fast, so when Monty shows up at a hotel, a bunch of reporters are already waiting for him. He tells them he's planning to hire a ton of people, and even announces that Spike is now the vice president of his brand new corporation. Inside the hotel, the manager explains that the top 2 floors are already booked, but when Monty offers to pay 10 times the regular price, the manager quickly changes his mind and hands over the keys. The group settles into their luxurious new rooms, and Monty and Spike go out to rent some sharp-looking suits. That evening, Angela's fiancé Warren shows up to pick her up. Monty takes the opportunity to make a big donation to one of Warren's charities, hoping to impress him. Warren is blown away by the art and furniture in the suite, showing off his deep knowledge of design. Monty is so impressed that he offers Warren a job as his personal decorator, with a seriously generous salary. Warren jumps at the offer, which leaves Angela disappointed. She can't believe her fiancé is so easily bought. The next morning, Warren asks his bosses at the law firm for a month off. They agree, but only if Warren acts as their inside man, keeping tabs on how Monty is spending the money. Warren isn't allowed to tell Angela about this arrangement. Meanwhile, Monty's office is packed with hundreds of people he's hired for all sorts of random jobs, even an impersonator. Warren calls in his ex-wife Marilyn, who's actually the real decorating expert and taught him everything he knows. This move really upsets Angela. Monty, trying to get Angela's attention, pokes her inappropriately, which is totally out of line. When Warren tries to step in and warn her, he slips and falls right into a bunch of paint buckets. Marilyn, on the other hand, is full of creative ideas, and Monty tells her there's plenty of money to make them all happen. At one point, a man approaches Monty asking for $3 million to haul an iceberg from the North Pole to Africa to provide fresh water. Monty approves the wild plan without a second thought, ignoring both Spike's and Angela's warnings that it's probably a scam. Monty also hires a guy to use the allowed 5% of his money to bet on horse races and sports, just to keep the spending going. Right then, Charlie calls and Monty announces that he's going to pay for his team to play an exhibition game against the Yankees. He even sends helicopters to pick up all his teammates. Outside the stadium, Monty waits for his friends with a full-blown welcome party, thrilled to see everyone show up in their brand new uniforms. He's even rented limos for the whole crew. The lawyers are watching all of this unfold and start to wonder if maybe they've underestimated Monty. Afterward, Monty suits up in his own uniform and joins the team for practice, while the news buzzes about the big upcoming game. Later that evening, Monty brings a woman back to his hotel, but just as things are about to heat up, Angela calls, saying they need to discuss something extremely urgent. Monty has no choice but to send the woman away. Spike and Angela show up at Monty's room with a financial advisor, hoping he'll help Monty make some smart investments. But Monty hires the guy on a salary instead of commissions and makes it clear he's not interested in any of his advice. Wanting to unwind, Monty and Spike head out to play some baseball, and Spike suggests Monty should invest in things like jewelry or rare stamps. That sparks an idea. Monty rushes to a collector's shop and buys the most expensive stamp in history. The next morning, the lawyers see this on the news and start laughing, thinking Monty just made a huge mistake by buying an asset. But then they get a postcard from Monty and are furious when they realize he used that pricey stamp to mail it. Now, the lawyers decide to let Warren in on the real challenge and ask him to create a mistake in Angela's accounting, promising him a big reward if the law firm ends up with the money. Later, Monty watches the news and finds out that his stocks in the iceberg company have tripled in value. Worried about all the new money, he tells his employees to sell everything immediately. To make things even crazier, the gambler he hired has won every single bet. Monty starts to panic and tells Angela to donate all the extra money to charity. Meanwhile, Marilyn finishes decorating the suite and has added a ton of new stuff, but Monty just asks her to keep going and do even more. Since Warren is so tied up helping Marilyn with the decorating, Angela finally agrees to have lunch with Monty, admitting she's impressed by a guy who's willing to give so much to charity. As they're about to leave, another car accidentally bumps into theirs from behind. The damage is barely noticeable, but Monty insists on taking the guy to the hospital just so he can pay for some medical services. Once the man realizes who Monty is, he suddenly acts like he's seriously injured, and Monty even hands him some cash to help cover his alimony payments to his 2 ex-wives. Angela loses it and starts yelling at Monty right there on the street, calling him out for his ridiculous choices. Warren watches the whole scene from a window, while Marilyn tells him that maybe Angela isn't the best partner for him after all, since she's making a scene in public. Later, at dinner, Warren tells Angela he thinks she's been a little too friendly with Monty and asks if her feelings have changed. Angela gets upset and storms out of the restaurant. Meanwhile, the news is buzzing about Monty buying 5 cases of 114-year-old wine and a bunch of cash at an auction house. He ended up opening all the bottles at a public reception, letting everyone share in the experience. A little while later, Spike and the financial advisor drop a bombshell. They made some investments behind Monty's back and ended up making $10 million. Monty totally freaks out, and everyone else is confused about why he's so upset. Just then, Warren comes in and asks Monty for $20,000 as a deposit for some furniture they'll be renting. Monty hands over the money and then sends everyone away so he can finally have a little time to himself. When Monty turns on the TV, he sees that the candidates running for mayor are blowing outrageous amounts of money on their campaigns. That gives Monty an idea. He decides to run for mayor himself, just so he can spend even more of his own money on his campaign. Angela thinks Monty must be feeling guilty about having so much cash and is finally using it to do something good for the community. At a press conference, Monty tells the reporters that nobody should vote for any of the candidates, not even him. Later, he goes on TV and says all the candidates are terrible people and only fools would vote for them. He even runs his ads in every state, just in case any New Yorkers are traveling. Monty's brutal honesty about political corruption makes him a sensation with the public. Angela keeps tracking the expenses and starts to worry because the money is almost gone. Meanwhile, the other two mayoral candidates meet in secret and agree they need to do something about Monty, who keeps roasting them on national TV. They end up suing him for emotional distress, and Monty is more than happy to pay the $4 million fine. Finally, the day of the big game arrives. Monty gives his team a pep talk, telling them they can take down the Yankees. Right before the game starts, a train rolls through the field, covered in more ads for Monty's campaign. Monty takes the mound as the first pitcher, and his teammate manages to catch the ball, getting the first Yankee out. When the next batter steps up, Spike starts taunting him and even insults his wife. The batter loses his cool and almost starts a fight, so he gets thrown out of the game. Meanwhile, Warren is at the furniture store, returning everything he rented and getting the deposit money back. On the field, the Bulls start off strong and actually give the Yankees a run for their money, but soon enough, the Yankees take control of the game. After a huge home run, Coach Charlie has no choice but to switch pitchers. He tells Monty he did a great job and reminds him, hey, these are the Yankees. The fact that the Bulls even scored a few runs is something to be proud of. Still, Monty feels down and heads to the locker room to sulk. Just then, the executor of the will approaches Monty and lets him know that if he actually wins the election, he'll get a salary, and that would count as an asset. The game wraps up with the Yankees taking the win, and Monty steps up to give a speech congratulating them. He points out that anyone with enough money can buy an election, but becoming a pro athlete takes real hard work. Monty also announces he's dropping out of the race, admitting he never expected to win and that everyone missed the real message. With barely any money left, Monty decides to spend the rest on one last blowout party, and everyone's invited. That night, Angela finishes the books with a perfect balance of 0. Monty comes to pick her up for the party, but Angela wants nothing to do with him. She's disgusted by how he wasted so much money on things that don't matter. She storms out, not hearing Monty quietly say, "I love you." At the party, Spike and the security guard check Donaldo's pockets and catch him stealing money. All of Monty's employees feel bad that he's broke and try to pool together some cash to help him out, but Monty refuses, and Donaldo is forced to give back what he took. The next morning, Monty wakes up with a massive hangover. The hotel manager reminds him it's time to check out, and workers from all the different services start hauling away everything Monty rented for the month, including his fancy clothes. Monty puts on his old team uniform, checks out the room Marilyn decorated one last time, and gives it his approval before it all gets taken away. On his way out, the doorman tells Monty he voted for nobody, just like Monty suggested. That night, the whole city is stunned to find out that nobody won the election. Everyone actually followed Monty's advice. With just 5 minutes left before midnight, Monty rushes to the lawyer's office. In the elevator, Warren catches up to him and hands back the deposit money. Frustrated, Monty screams and tells the lawyers he's done. He's ready to sign the papers and walk away from it all. Meanwhile, Warren is watching everything from the window when Angela finds him and asks what's going on. Thinking it's all over, Warren finally tells her the truth. An angry Angela grabs the deposit ticket from Warren and rushes into the office to expose the whole setup. She's so mad at Warren for his deception that she's about to slap him, but Monty steps in and punches Warren himself. Warren threatens to sue Monty for assault, so Monty quickly asks Angela to be his lawyer and hires her on the spot, using the deposit money. As the clock ticks down to midnight, Angela quickly writes up a receipt for her legal services, making sure Monty is completely broke just before the final second. Right then, the executor of the will announces that Monty has officially won the challenge, and the entire fortune is now his. He also reveals that he'll be launching an investigation into the lawyers for possible fraud. Excited, Monty celebrates his big win and leaves with Angela, excited to start a brand new life together. If you enjoyed this recap, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on more awesome videos like this. Thanks for watching.